friends, can you train your way to a bulletproof body, or are injuries inevitable? Settle in, let's find out. Now, most people assume that flexibility and strength are separate skills, although I guess maybe not if you're listening to Bend and Snatch. Welcome back, my lovely listeners. This is episode 19, and I am back in February after the Christmas break. It's been a long break. I had a mild concussion. I still have a lump on my head. It's been about 3 weeks since I whacked myself in the face, and it's taken me a really long time to edit this episode, mostly because if I stare at my computer for too long, I start to feel a little bit sick. So, with that in mind, I want you to know that this has been a real labour of love, and I would really greatly appreciate all of the likes and the shares and the comments to help spread the pod to more people. Please, thank you. That would be great. Now, in this episode, I'm speaking with Tasha Louie about her explorative training practice, and she shares her journey from beginner to expert, illustrating how playful experimentation combined with strategic training turned her into one of the most resourceful and creative movement masters around. You are going to discover how a mix of strength, flexibility, and skill work can unlock your full potential. No matter your age or your starting point, anyone can get better at anything. Now, you're going to learn the truth about injury recovery, pain, and how to keep making progress in the face of setbacks. But before we kick off, I wanted to let you all know that on September the 21st, I will be running my first Bendy Strong workshop of the year. That does mean that there will hopefully be more Bendy Strong workshops this year. So if you are in or near Sheffield and you are interested in coming along, this is your chance. I've created a discount code for pod listeners, Bend and Snatch, so you can get 10% off your ticket price. We're going to be focusing on squats, deadlifts, and lower body mobility, leaning towards long stance and wide stance. So like front split, side split, if that's within reach. Now, it's going to be at CrossFit Braze, and there are currently, as of recording this, 5 tickets left, so let's go. Now, I can't wait to see you there. So now I want you to enjoy the episode. I really enjoyed talking to Tasha, and I think you're going to enjoy it too. We cover loads of things, and I can't wait to hear your feedback and your thoughts and your questions at the end of it, because I always love when you guys come back to me with these thoughts of yours. Tasha, hi, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. How you doing?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. I've been following you for such a long time, and I'm probably going to fangirl a little bit now because I just think you're so incredible. I still tell people about that video of you doing the Damme Split with maybe 100-pound dumbbell. And it's just one of the coolest things ever. And it's one of the main reasons that I've been training my middle splits for the last couple of years, because I really want to be able to do it. So I'm excited. Hi, welcome.
Hi. That's awesome.
Why don't we start with the Damme Split? How long did that take you to be able to do the Damme specifically, but also to be able to get your middle split?
Boy, it's very hard to gauge these things sometimes, because I think it's very normal for for people to start a difficult skill, give up on it, come back, give up on it, come back, and so on and so forth. So that's something that the middle splits was for me for a while. If I were to talk about dedicated practice, I could say about 18 months to 2 years. But I did, mess around for quite a bit as a kid and never got anywhere close.
What did that dedicated practice look like for you?
Nothing crazy. It was weighted stretching. So things like Cossack squats, wider squats, and holds for a very long time. Once or twice a week, nothing crazy. Because there were a couple of injuries along the way. I pushed a little too hard or a little too soon or too much. And what was comfortable for me to continue making tiny little itty bits of progress each week was once or twice a week. Even though it felt like I was only getting 0.5 millimeter deeper.
Can we talk a bit about those injuries? How did you hurt yourself? What did you hurt?
I tore my left adductor. That was fun. It was very mild grade, but it was still very, very scary because I don't know what it is, but it's like you can feel the shredding sensation. You can kind of hear it as well. It's bizarre. Um, and then I dislocated my ankle, which was unrelated, but I made it worse with the middle splits training. I did something to my right hip, but I still don't know to this day what it was. It's a very non-specific hip injury.
How did you train around those things while you were training for your middle splits, or did you just like leave it and come back to it when they were better?
It depends on in the earlier days when I didn't have a lot of experience with injuries and pain related to injuries like that. I I think most people would just leave it alone for a while and then come back and try again. Sometimes it works depending on the grade of the injury. Other times it just would happen again the moment I came back to it. So when I figured things out a little bit more, the best thing was really to find exercises related to or not related to stretching, really, that you can still train that area, whether it be a simple squat, walking, or just general movement. Because when you keep that area moving, it feels less painful over time. It gives you a little bit more confidence. It speeds up healing and whatnot because you're pumping more blood flow to that area, so it's getting more nutrients and whatnot. And if it's really, really, really bad, um, machines. They're not my favorite thing, but they are way better than sitting around and wishing that it got better sooner.
Machines can be super handy for times like that, like if you are injured or if you have any mobility restrictions, because it does let you still train something and still can train quite hard as well, so long as it's like one little bit at a time. Sometimes people really hate machines, but I feel like they definitely have a place, and
Absolutely.
that is one of them for sure. You hurt
Huge.
your back recently as well, didn't you? Was that lifting or was that in life?
That was just life. Just I was late. I woke up late. And it's one of those things where you like spring out of bed and you're like struggling to put your clothes on and stuff like that. I nearly stepped on my cat that I didn't see when I was springing out of bed. And he was just chilling by the bedside. And I felt fur with my foot. And it was just one of those things where you kind of just do whatever you can. I twisted myself out of his harm's way. And I tweaked something in my back because I came crashing down on it pretty hard.
It is so unfortunate. I feel like most of the time injuries are just moving weird in real life. That's one of the reasons that I love doing the like old school strongman style of lifts sometimes, because they're training you to move weird, which I feel like gives you a better chance in those situations where you do move weird to not either to not get hurt as bad, or maybe to like not get hurt for as long if you do get hurt, compared to if you weren't doing all the weird things.
I think it definitely trains your ability to feel what's going on in like super slow motion with precision so that your body can adapt really, really well. You don't really have to think too much through. It forces you to stay very present and be very intuitive with what you're doing because I mean we don't really know much about it, but I do think that our body is always looking out for us in one way or another.
I love that. The style of training that you do is like a mix of strength stuff, flexibility stuff, and skill stuff. How long have you been doing that sort of blend for, and what brought you to this way of training?
I think it's kind of always been there, but for it to really take off in a way that felt permissive, like I gave myself permission to do so, like without any restrictions, was probably around COVID times 2020, because there wasn't much available and you had to do something if you really wanted to keep moving. And that was something that I really wanted to maintain during that time. And so whatever I had available in the garage or outside, and I did all sorts of crazy things like I filled buckets with concrete. Um, I got a metal pipe that was around 5 foot long, and I would just hook the buckets on either end and use it as a makeshift barbell to deadlift. Um,
Gosh.
and then I figured out that it wasn't very smart because it's concrete and I didn't really weigh it out beforehand. I just filled the bucket. And there's all this instability at play because you're just, balancing these buckets on the end of a metal pole and they'd slide around and you have to like manage it. So I'd have to learn I had to get little divots cut out at the end just to keep them in place. It helped a little bit, but it was still incredibly hard to do anything with it. But that was a lot of fun.
That's so funny. You're so resourceful. What made you decide that that was going to be the system?
I don't know. I don't know. So during that time, I would visit my parents a lot because, well, try to visit people that are, close to you and available to you and whatnot during that time. And my dad is a woodworker, and he owns a business making stuff for other people. So he had all this crap lying around, and I was just like, think I can put that together and do that with that. And it was just trial and error for a big part of it. Some of it worked, some of it didn't work. And some of it gave ideas on how to make it better with other uh, items and whatnot. And it just kind of just went from there.
Just from like watching your Instagram stories and talking to you a little bit now, there's definitely an element of exploration and play in the way that you train. Why does that feel important for you to do? Like, what are you getting out of exploring movement in this way?
A lot. It's genuinely fun for me. And I've always been the type of person, my mother tells me, uh, who doesn't like being told no or that I can't do something. And not incredibly smart in that area sometimes. Like I will bang my head against the wall for a while, like hurting myself until I figure it out. Um, Not on purpose to hurt myself, but it's just like I don't know what it is. It's just like I'm going to find solutions one way or another. And if it gets me 1% closer to what I'm looking for, I'm gonna roll with it because it's further than I did before. Also, as I got older, I noticed that a lot of people do make movement less of a priority because it's difficult. It is difficult. I understand that. Part of my job is trying to it's great because I have this thing, this obsession on my own. But if I can, you know, bring that into my work and help others out in in that, it's a really great feeling because we all have very different resources. So it's like, different we all have, different 24 hours. We have, different amounts of income. We have different amounts of time allotted for certain activities and lifestyles and whatnot. And we have different backgrounds, we have different experiences, all of these things, a lot of which is um not in our immediate control, if ever. So it's really, really nice to be able to solve a problem for somebody else with an obsession slash deficit behavior of sorts.
I think that creativity is so important. Like the willingness and desire to be creative and to explore movement, because you learn a lot more that way rather than just kind of doing it one way because that's the way it was always done. But also as a coach, it's a really valuable skill to have because if you're working with someone who does have some sort of like mobility restriction or whatever, and they look at an exercise and they're like, that's obviously impossible. How am I going to do that? If you can think of a way to still do it, to still get the same or similar benefit, then that's giving someone access to exercise and movement in a way that wouldn't have otherwise been possible. And that's incredible.
It's huge. It's huge because I train a lot of seniors. They used to make up about 30% of my client group, and now it's inching towards 40, 45 now. And I've never been happier because it's a it's a group of people that have long given up in a lot of ways, and it's so fun to come up with solutions for them because they're not a group of people that are looking for six pack abs or to be on stage. pulling a shit ton of weight. So they're very reasonable about, what they can get out of fitness. And so if there is 1 or 2 sessions where they can do something that they haven't done for years, decades even, it's very profound, and it opens their perspective to doing more things that they didn't think was possible again, like riding a bike. Like the skill is always there. It's like one of those skills that just sticks around. But if there's pain in the knee or some strength and limitations and whatnot, like those are things you can steadily build up, and then you apply the skill, it comes right back. So it's just little things like that are really, really cool to see. I did see a story about you having black eye, I think 2 black eyes. And then I think I saw a story today about being contested. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was so last week, 8 days ago now. Today was my first day back in the gym. I was just doing hip snatches, and my instruction on my program was really fast, be aggressive. So I was trying to be like really fast and really aggressive, but I'm also dyspraxic, and I was trying so hard to be fast that I just left my face in the way. So on my way down, as I'm dropping into my squat, I'm also pulling the bar, and I pulled it straight into my head at like max velocity, the fastest I could possibly have been moving, because I also had gravity on my side as I was falling down into the squat. And it was very dramatic. It was huge. So would not recommend leaving your face in the way.
Noted.
Not great. But I did my hip snatches today, and I didn't hit myself in the face. And I've never hit myself in the face before. That was ridiculous. Usually I know where my face is.
How long have you been training for?
So training weightlifting regularly for maybe 3.5 years. Training weightlifting on and off for maybe 7 years.
Yeah.
And then training the gym in general for maybe 12 years. And before that, I used to do martial arts. So taekwondo and then kickboxing. And I stopped kickboxing because it was full contact kickboxing. And my dad got dementia, and he used to be a boxer. So I was like, I should stop letting people hit me in the head. I'm going to do something else. So I was like, weightlifting, right? There's like 0 head injuries in weightlifting. It's one of the safest possible sports of all the sports you can do. And then what do? Hit myself in the head.
Yes, but that was many, many years later than when you had that thought, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it took me some... There's been lots of getting hit in the head in the interim. But if one day I end up with dementia, I'm going to think back to this moment of like, remember when you gave yourself a concussion? That was it. That was the day. That was the day that these seeds were laid. So we'll see. We'll come back to it in like 30, 40 years, I guess.
I'm glad you're okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm fine. I learned a valuable lesson about looking up and not looking at the floor, I guess.
I have these tangents every now and then, and it's okay to share.
Please.
And I'll do my best to bring it back. I do have a little ADD, so it's like, but I was just thinking about this, about how you see all these reels and ads and whatnot in the fitness space about like being injury free and injury proof and whatnot, and it's like it's such a lie, because life happens all the time if you're living it, right? I mean, if you're not living it, then you probably won't get injured from those types of injuries. You might have some other things to deal with, but it's like shit happens in life, shit happens in training. Injuries really are a part of life. Pain is a part of life. I guess that's my kind of way of saying, you don't have to be that hard on yourself. I mean, I've been through so much myself as well.
I think about this a lot as well with the injury-proof, bulletproof stuff. When I first started as a coach, that seemed like a good goal to aim for, right? To like never get hurt. And I'm hypermobile, so like historically I've always got hurt from like walking into stuff or just walking wrong or sleeping wrong. Just generally repeat joint pain from like existing. And strength training did really help a lot to like bring that down. So I'm not like spraining my ankle every day. Good. better. I think where strength training and plyometrics as well to like build stronger bones becomes more realistic is that maybe you do still get hurt, but maybe it's like not all the time, and maybe it's not as bad, and maybe you get better quicker, but also maybe you learn how to manage pain so that you can still do stuff, so you don't actually just take 6 months off every time you get hurt, because then you actually start making progress, and then you start realizing what you're capable of, because we are really adaptable and we can still do stuff. And that feels really important as like a life lesson for all of us, to not be afraid of getting hurt. Sometimes it does just happen.
Well, that, and also you're much more better prepared for the next time it happens. You know, like we never wish to get injured, right? But if it's a part of life, if we can learn from each one when it happens, hopefully not too often, um, I think it really helps move you along quite a bit. And in a way does make you maybe not injury proof, but just more fear proof of your body being so fragile, especially as you get older, because you're gonna get older. You can't stop that either. So it's just a matter of just being more and better prepared as you go.
When you're working with your older folks, is it hard to convince them to try new things, or generally the people, when they start working with you, they're ready to try doing hard things?
It's different for each person. I typically ask them about their attitudes on fitness and what they think fitness is, or what strength training is and what it looks like, because there's a lot of stuff wrapped up in those words, right? And they're not entirely accurate or fully fleshed out. For one person, they may think that putting on muscle is, you know, trying to be a bodybuilder, right? And trying to be as huge as possible. And that means nothing to them. In fact, it's something that they may have been scared of their entire life because of certain social norms and whatnot. And for others, it means that they're able to button their shirt without pain in their elbow or shoulder, right? Like these very simple things. And others might think that's a simple, fitness is doing certain things. Like fitness is doing the squat, the bench, the deadlift, right? I try to figure it out with each person. I try not to challenge them right away too soon, because that's something I'm still learning as a coach. I'm not perfect, but I try to align what they find positive in fitness and build from there. So if they're very comfortable with the idea that squat, bench, and deadlift is something that's really good and needed for them, we will start with that, or some variation of it if they can't do a full, from the floor deadlift or whatnot. And then we'll explore from there through a lot of questions and a lot of conversation.
What would the answer for that be for you? What is fitness? What is strength for you?
It changes as I get older. And as I get older, I realize a more general approach is probably best, because my attitudes and my ideas will change as I get older as well too, because life will influence all of that and my experiences that I haven't yet had. So if I can keep it broad, then it feels more true to me. And that is to be as self-independent as possible. Not that I can't accept help. I ask for help a lot. But it is to be able to move through life with a level of dignity that I'm satisfied with.
That's such a good answer. That's a really great way of looking at fitness for everyone, really. I guess it's not something you think about when you're younger as much, but as you start getting a bit older, it becomes a bit more obvious. Maybe also the more time you spend with people who are older than you, the more obvious it seems as well.
Yes.
Some people who I work with who are in their 60s who can do like a Steinborn squat or like a Turkish get up and stuff like that, that's like dead cool and can do like a full forward fold. And you're like, that's awesome. And then there are people maybe the same age who struggle to tie their shoes or to like put stuff in the top shelf. And it shows you that age isn't necessarily the reason that these things are happening. And the reason that we get these huge discrepancies in what is possible as we age. A lot of, like, some of it obviously just comes down to luck, but a lot of it comes down to what you've kept doing and whether or not you've been practicing these shapes. Because if you don't, that's when they disappear. And I think that's when we start to feel more old, when we start losing the ability to do stuff.
Absolutely.
How long have you been training for?
I got started in my 30s.
Were you always doing what kind of similar to what you're doing now? So like strength stuff, flexibility stuff. Where did you start?
Well, I mean, you can consider it all strength stuff because I wasn't doing anything strength related. So anything that got me stronger could be considered strength training in that sense. If we're talking about more like gym based fitness strength stuff, that would be around 2017-ish, maybe something like that. But I've always been kind of in and outside of the gym space before that. I don't know if me running for, ever on a treadmill in my college days, because I thought that's what fitness was for women. I don't know if that counts as training. Does it count in
Yeah.
the question that you're asking?
Yeah, I guess it still counts as, but just as something different, right? Any
Yeah.
exercise adds towards the total amount of accumulated exercise over time.
Okay. I mean, like, I've always been an active kid in that sense. Then I've always been riding my bike. I've been climbing trees, over neighbors' fences when I wasn't supposed to be. All that kind of stuff since I was a kid. I did tennis in high school, and then I did some track and field too. Shot putting and discus. It was a lot of fun. And then
Cool.
getting into my college years, the like formal gym environment was introduced to me because we had a gym on campus. And at the time, there weren't really a lot of women in the weight room at all, really. And so did a lot of elliptical treadmill running for a little bit. Every now and then when I was feeling bold, I'd like sneak a pair of dumbbells out from the weight room and like go in the corner somewhere and just like do some bicep curls
Nice.
because it looked a lot more fun. And then that dropped off after college. Did some rock climbing, and after a career of bartending and other things, I got into the gym almost every day after I quit bartending, just as a healthy lifestyle thing, because bartending wasn't very healthy for me. And built myself up. So I would say like really dedicated gym ratty stuff, since 2017.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in powerlifting, there's like squat, bench, deadlift. And then I
Right.
guess in flexibility, generally speaking, it's like front split, middle split, bridge. In your training, do you have like
Mhm.
3 big lifts that are always really important? Maybe not even lifts, 3 big exercises that are always really important that always stay in the program?
Ooh, good question. I think some variation of a Jefferson curl, a Zercher grip Jefferson curl / Mansfield / stiff-legged Zercher deadlift, whatever you want to call it, on that spectrum, because people argue over it. So I'm just going to put all 3 of them in there. Some variation of that is really fun for me. Some variation of push-ups or dips. Recently, they're on the rings a little bit more. Some sort of side splitty kind of thing. So whether it be like a Cossack squat or middle splits holds or straddle ups where you're starting on the floor in kind of like a pancake position and then you roll forward into a middle split and come back down. I think those would be my 3.
Nice. They're good choices.
What are yours?
So, okay. I probably should have thought about this before I asked you. Some kind of deadlift variation, either with a flex spine or a neutral spine. I like to mix it up. Some kind of jumping.
Mhm.
This is a thing I've only been doing for the last 3 years. I never really did it before because I was really scared that I was going to hurt myself because I was always hurting myself walking wrong. But actually, doing more jumping has made my knees and ankles much more resilient than I could have possibly imagined. So I'd like to keep doing that forever, even though I'm not very good at it at all. but it doesn't matter so long as I'm trying hard, because that's the only bit that's really important. If you keep trying hard, then you keep getting the adaptations. So some kind of jumping thing, and then some kind of throwing thing. So either weightlifting or mace swinging, or actually just throwing stuff.
Love that.
But it just misses out so many things. I also have ADHD, which is why my training looks like this, because I like to just do all the things.
Well, also, you mentioned more than 3, and I struggled with that when you asked me that. I was like,
My answer was really vague, so it became all-encompassing. So I guess in conclusion, no, I don't have a big 3 of my own.
I don't. I have like a big 7 or something like that. Really, like
Okay.
the throwing thing. Like, I love a good sandbag throw, like from the lap to my shoulder. Like, it just feels really. It just feels really cool. Especially if I'm moving heavy shit from my car or whatnot. It feels really nice. And like a mace or a barbell kind of twirl kind of thing, super fun. But yeah, there's a lot to cover.
The barbell twirling stuff is so cool. I think I must have seen you do that for the first time a couple of years ago. So I had a go. I'm very short. What I learned from that experience is you must be very tall. So I could do some twirling with like the training bar, which I think is like 5 foot, but I couldn't do it with the grown-up bars, not the ladies bar, or definitely not the men's bar. But I don't know if you're using a ladies bar or a men's bar in your video, but it's definitely not a training bar. So you must be so high up to be able to do it without crashing into the ground. That was my main lesson from that exploration.
So, I'm a little taller, on the taller side, but I will say that it is still possible for shorter folks. It's just a lot harder, unfortunately. But maybe that's a good thing because it's impressive as fuck when it happens. The thing is that if you don't have a lot of height, you're going to have to make up for it in your spine, or you're just going to have to arch up a little bit so the bar comes up in front of you a little bit so it doesn't hit the floor. It's not going to look the same necessarily, but it can still happen in the same pattern.
Now that we've had this conversation, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to have to try with the 15-kilo bar.
If it's just a height issue, like if the weight is fine, then yes, it's just going to take a little bit more extension, a little bit more, side bending, lateral flexion, and whatnot, in the spine to get that in front of you. And when it goes behind you, you might have to duck down a little bit more flexion. Which can be a little scary. So yes, if the weight is manageable, then the height thing, that's how you get around it.
Okay, I'm going to have another go. Can we talk a little bit about how to train flexibility in a way that is meaningful and intentional, and you do actually get more flexible from doing it? In social media, there's loads of stuff about like mobility exercises, right? And a lot of the time it'll be like a dozen dynamic stretches where people are kind of mindlessly throwing themselves around, and then it's either that or it's someone being like, stretching doesn't work, it doesn't do anything, don't ever stretch. And those are kind of the two ends of...
The answer for most things is in between the two loudest parties. It can't just be one way or another. It just can't, unless you're some special unicorn of just, 1 or 2 in the world, maybe. And I doubt, and they're not the ones being super loud about that either. But it's just everybody else who has to believe this and make it true. They're just adding a lot of noise that's completely unnecessary. It's somewhere in between. Something I started doing with people who work with me in the beginning or are thinking about working with me, I always tell them to try out the thing that they've been thinking about or curious about. They're like, hey, what about this video? What about these stretches and these exercises and whatnot? I'm like, before we get started, if we do work together, I want you to do all that stuff. Like, just go at it. Just do it for 3 to 6 months and come back if you want to. Like, if you find something that works for you, fantastic, keep doing it. And if you want some guidance afterwards, after you've hit a plateau or whatnot, come back and we'll brainstorm and we'll kick it back and forth. It'll be great. And then for people that don't find anything and they're still interested, like the thing is, they have to be interested for it to work, whatever it is. If they've tried all these things and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And they're still interested and they come back and they want to work, great. Now they have a list of things that they have experiences with. You have to play around for a while before you actually find out what works for you. No coach is going to know exactly what's going to work for you without doing that with you for a little bit.
What are some simple strategies for people who are new to flexibility training to start building the skill of being able to sit in a stretch for the most part? That's the hardest bit about flexibility training, right? To actually be able to sit still and not fidget.
I think that it is a excellent meditation practice for those that don't meditate or don't want to meditate, but think it might be good for them, because you do have to pay attention to what's going on. There's just so much going on. You have to figure out, like, is this actual pain, or is this my body freaking out and thinking that it's going to tear me in half? Or is it just that it's scared that it's never been here and they're not sure and they want you to figure it out? You can just sit in a stretch and hang out really hard. You can sit in a stretch and watch something. That might work unless something happens and you weren't paying attention and that's bad. I'm a big fan of combining traditional strength movements or somewhat traditional strength movements and having people hang out in the stretch for a couple seconds at a time for, I don't know, 5 to 8, 10 reps, whatever they can sustain, just to get a taste of it at that extreme range with a bit of load and come out of it. I'm a big fan of that.
Could you give me an example?
So something like an RDL, for example. If they can do a really great stiff-legged RDL, or even like completely locked out with knees, then I would be like, all right, we're going to do this for a little while. We're going to stand on a deficit, make it a deficit, stand on the plate, but not hang out in that body position and come back up. If they don't have access to that, then we start with a traditional RDL with as straight knees as possible. If they're looking for more hamstring flexibility, for example, and just go about it in your usual way, with the exception of hang out at the bottom for a couple of seconds for each rep and then come back up. I know that it has its own challenges too, because when you bring traditional strength movements in, people often default to lift as heavy as possible. And if you lift as heavy as possible that you're used to, those few seconds in that stretched position get super, super heavy very, very quick. And it can be this other issue of managing your ego of, well, I can RDL 200 pounds for reps of 8 to 10 typically, but I have to bring it down quite a bit to be able to do the pause at the bottom.
If someone wants to get an idea of how to structure a strength session that is also a flexibility session, what might that look like?
So for the just for the lower body, then it would be a combination, depending on their preferences, if they enjoy something or if they have access to something. If they had access to everything and they're, interested in everything, that's awesome. So I'll just program for that right now. Some variation of like a deadlift RDL in a lengthened position, a sumo horse stance squat, Cossack squat, and a hold that they can tolerate. I think those would be like the big rocks that I would hit first. If there are some like specific things like knee, ankle, hip accessory movements, we tack that on later.
I guess that sort of structure would probably be the same regardless what the goal is, right? So big lift, couple of medium lifts, stretch bit, just so people listening are like, okay, how do I structure all the other things without us having to go through everything? Putting those things together can work really nice. I always really enjoy having a deadlift and a split session together, especially if it's like front splits, quite nice with RDL type shapes, side splits, quite nice with like a sumo deadlift, horse stance, quite kind of shape, because it's all kind of the same thing. And I think as you start to understand how these are all kind of the same thing, it starts to become a little bit easier to figure out how to pair them together.
If they need something to help with learning how to like really anteriorly rotate their pelvis forward, if that is something that they need or aren't familiar with, then I'll also throw in some sort of like pancake or straddled good morning variation just to really get into that. For some people, it helps really well for their middle splits.
That's something I spent a lot of last year working on for myself. Good morning, horse stance, good morning, pancake, good morning. Basically, good morning in all possible positions until my brain hinged, tilted my hips better.
Yeah.
So yeah, agree. Very helpful. What do you think's the coolest feat of flexibility / strength that you have achieved so far?
I think the bent press is really, really cool. It took me a long time to figure out, and I'm nowhere near like any kind of record at all. But just the ability to do it was really, really mind blowing to me. That, and also holding weight over your head in that position is really scary. Getting over that fear is a really, really, it's a really, really cool feeling. Like it makes you feel very capable, very strong for whatever reason. So I would say the bent press recently has been a really cool thing that I enjoyed learning. I'm still learning.
That's awesome. What was the process of learning the bent press like for you?
It's frustrating. If, I think I started sometime in 2021, 22. I can't remember because the COVID years are all like blended together. I think a lot of people can relate to the idea of seeing something and you're thinking, oh, I could do that. And then, you think you're being sensible by picking like a smaller, lower weight than you would like. But then even that like buries you. And then you're like, oh, can I do this? Man, is this smart? Am I gonna YOLO it? And maybe don't say that anymore. Fuck. Am I just gonna say fuck it and do it and maybe get hurt and maybe succeed once? Or am I gonna like take my time and take the tiniest little baby steps and swallow my pride and ego every single time I do it for the next however many years it might take me? It did take me like 3 years. It is tonguing back between, I think I can handle this weight. No, I cannot. I'm going to start with a little baby weight, but then that's not heavy enough. Learning that is really another process too. It's like, it has to be heavy enough for you to get under it. Otherwise you're just pressing it, and you're not supposed to press. You're supposed to hold and duck underneath and squat / windmill your way underneath it. So yes, it was very frustrating, but it was a lot of trial and error with a lot of different implements. I'm very lucky to have access to barbells at the gym at the time, plates over there, kettlebells, dumbbells.
I've seen videos recently of a few different people doing it with like a stack of plates. And that blows my mind because if you're not holding it, it's just resting. And there are like 3 plates. And if you're just
Yes.
like a little bit wrong, you might die. And like, you probably won't. But I mean, I've clearly proved that I hit my head sometimes when I'm doing things. So it's not, the risk isn't 0.
I actually ate a plate. I didn't do 3 plates, but I did eat a plate once trying that. It was a 20-kilo plate. It was a 45. And I was like, I could do it. I did do it, but it did smack across the jaws coming out.
Oh man.
I don't think I tried it again after that.
I mean, that's fair enough. I've never tried with a plate. I'm a chicken. So I've just tried with bars and kettlebells. Barbells look really cool. So even if it's not very heavy, it still looks very cool.
Yes.
And sometimes that's enough.
There's that extra rotation factor that's really tricky and scary sometimes. James Fuller likes to call it the helicopter of death. And I was like, oh, that's something to be aware of. And he's like, yeah, you gotta watch out for that. I'm like, okay.
I don't think I've hit myself in the head doing bent presses before. I think something that really helped me when I was learning bent press, because for a really long time, I just kept pressing it instead of getting under it. And then someone taught me a side press. And then suddenly there was a distinction of two different things. And I was like, okay, if this is a side press, then this has to be something else. And
Yes.
then that was really helpful on my brain to be like, okay, no pressing, coming down. So that was really useful. So now whenever I teach people bent press, I'll teach it in like a staggered process of like twisting press, side press, bent press. So then then it makes sense that it's a different thing to the other thing, the easier thing. And then because also, even though it's harder, you can do it loads more heavy. It feels like a reward because then you get to do it more heavy.
Yes.
Which is nice.
Yes.
What cool thing are you working on at the moment?
I don't know. I'm still working on the bent press. These things take a really long time for me. I mean, the Mansfield took a long time, or the Searcher Jefferson's is like whatever. That thing took a long time. The middle splits took a long time. They all take a long time, and what I'm dabbling with is a return to rings. I really like the feel of them. It just feels very, I don't know. It's like it's doing stuff on the bar is great too, but there's something about the rings where you have to be like super extra focused. A lot like the strongman lifts. Like if you're not keeping the rings directly underneath you and you're not holding it, like stabilizing it just right during certain movements, like it could just fly out from you. And that could be scary. Things like piecing together different ring movements for flow. I'm a big fan of flow, like whatever form that you can find it in. Like it could be just one lift, like a bent press, that you can get into flow in that. Or it could be like a series of movements that you can piece together, and finding the transition pieces for your body in your environment is really fun for me. So like I used to do a lot of that with single-legged squats or wacky squats, like sissy squat into a Hawaiian squat, into a Cossack squat, into a pistol squat, into a dragon squat, or whatever. Like that stuff is a lot of fun. So right now I'm trying to find what's interesting and cool for me on the ring. So whether it be like muscle up, forward roll, backward roll, just to make it as fluid as possible.
How long have you been training the rings for?
On and off, I've been doing it for 3 years. I started in 2023-ish.
What do you think are some good takeaways for the people listening when it comes to training in general, and then I guess also strength and flexibility training? What do you want people to walk away from this being like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's what I'm going to be thinking about.
I think for something like general strength training or training in general fitness, whatnot, is to really pay attention to what you want, not what other people want for you, or not even for you, what other people want you to envy and prove other people wrong, because in the end it's just you. You and your body and what it can do for you in your life with the people around you that you care about, right? I think we can very easily lose sight of things now with, social media and whatnot, like always force feeding us stuff and things, and they all look very cool on the surface, but you never know what went into it and what their motivations were and what their lives are like. So I would really, really encourage you to look into what, interests you, and think about whether it works for you too, and if you're willing to put in what it takes to get said thing, because there's no worse feeling, and I've been through this and I've seen a bit of it, is there's really no worse feeling than putting in a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, even into something that once you get it, you realize you never really. And if I can encourage anyone to stay away from that, that's one big thing, because the simplest little thing that does apply to your life and is what you really want. Like, it may not be impressive to show other people or to post on social media or to be like, "Hey, mom, look at this," whatever that may be. Like, it's the other thing is so insignificant. It's so flimsy. It's so fragile, and it can make you feel not too great. But this little thing that lights you up just for you is going to carry you through a lot further than that other thing that's going to crumble.
What was the thing that you sunk all the time and money into that you realized you didn't want?
In my earlier years, in my 20s, when I wasn't like into fitness, I was more into aesthetics, or the idea of aesthetics that was fed to me and my generation of women. I think I spent way too much time, way too much energy, grief, money into things that didn't work or something that I didn't actually want, because it left me so weak and unhappy just to get a glimpse of that thing that was sold to me in the late 1990s and early 2000s.
That period of time was really responsible for selling a lot of people a really unhealthy idea of what fitness was supposed to look like. And I think a lot of people still struggle with the aftershock of living through that. And it still affects people's behaviors now. And it's quite sad watching a lot of those ideas return almost to social media, repackaged, but kind of the same vibe. Because, like, I grew up with nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. And I feel like that's where we've come back to, which is such a shame, because for a really long time, there was like this upward trend of no, getting strong is good. Being able to do stuff is good. You don't want your
Right.
periods to stop even though they're annoying because they're actually important, you know? And now it's everywhere again. And it must be so much harder to ignore now because I didn't have social media when I was younger. I had
True.
to like go out of my way to find this stuff on like
Right.
websites when my mum had gone to bed and I could use the internet because it was connected to the phone line. But now the internet is here all of the time in our hands.
Yes.
I don't know what the solution to that is.
I don't know either, but I do recognize that things have a tendency to recycle itself over and over again anyway in history. Like, you don't have to go that far back. When you use the word history, people think like, oh, hundreds of years ago. But no, I'm just talking like a decade, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago. Like, it's the same with fashion. We talked about jeans a little bit offline. But it's like, there was a time when like, was it like wide-legged, flared bottoms and whatnot with jeans was the in thing, and then it just swung the other way into like, skinny jeans for a really long. Then now the kids are bringing back, a looser fit cut jeans and whatnot, and they're tapping into the 90s aesthetic. It's like, I feel like this is gonna happen anyway, and I think we just have to be very conscious of where we've been before and how we can make the right decisions for ourselves moving forward.
How do you drown out the noise of social media in general and I guess other people's ideas of what things should look like?
I'm still figuring it out because I run a business on social media. So it's hard. It's not easy. I really do have to pay attention to what's helping me do well in my business and what's good for me as well, like emotionally and mentally speaking. Um, and I think that's usually the best guide. Like, if I'm spending hours watching somebody else bash one one modality of fitness for too long. And I'll look at the watch and I'll be, oh shit, it's been like an hour. I could have gotten back to all of my client emails at that time. What are you doing? Not useful, not helpful. Oh, I didn't learn anything. So it's like really paying attention to like what you're consuming, if it helps you. Like if I got whisked away for an hour watching a bunch of reels about areas of nutrition that I wasn't very well versed in, and learned something, and I was like taking notes, thinking about how this applies to a certain client, that's time well spent. If it's something that I can remember off of social media, because that's the thing, you don't remember a lot off of short form media. If it's something that I have spent some time listening to and I took notes down and find myself learning more about it on my own time off of social media, then that's time well spent, because it's for something you're interested in, something that's helpful for you or somebody else or your client, your work. That's what I try to remind myself. Like, is this helpful? Can I apply it? Or is it just making me feel shitty for no reason at all?
Yeah. I think that sounds like a really sensible strategy. The way social media is becoming, because of the way like that algorithm works, you're just more likely to get fed content that does make you feel bad if you stay there for long enough. Because I guess that's the stuff people are more likely to interact with because they're mad about it. So then it shows up more. And if you can just curate the stuff that you're looking at better, so you are getting more, I guess, of the educational stuff and less of just, I don't know, the infighting and the scams. That can only be a good thing.
I can also get sucked in with, really good positive stuff too. And at some point I'll be like, this is great for this person. I love it. But it also does come down to just limiting your time on social media when you don't need to be on it. Outside of social media, worrying about what they're thinking or what they may be thinking is also a big waste of time. I keep telling myself, I'm still working on this. It's not like I have this down. But as I get older, I do realize that my energy and my emotions are very like limited with it. Like I just, if I allow it to bury me, I'm going to be back to where I was in my 20s, and I'm going to be in a deficit somewhere that's not going to move me forward at all. So it's just having to remember all of that and move in directions that do help me move forward and, allow me to feel better about myself and the world. I think that's what we can all really hope for, right?
Feel better.
Feel better or better enough to be in a shape to contribute in a positive way. I think that's what we're lacking quite a bit right now.
The ability to contribute
Positively.
Do you think that's because everyone's so tired?
Yes, everybody's tired, and it's always easier to not be positive or optimistic. It really is, because it feels like you can just vent your way out. There's a time and place for it, but there's also a time to build, grow, regenerate as well too.
We're better, I think, for the people around us when we have regenerated. It's that fill your own cup first, right? If you're good, it's much easier for you to be able to help other people. And the world is on fire, so our ability to help each other is going to be really valuable. Where can people find you if they would like to hear more from you?
Instagram is probably where I'm most active. It's at Tasha.Louie, Louie. And for a certain generation, it's spelled the same way the salad is.
Any closing thoughts for the listeners?
I risk being cheesy here, but I have nothing else. It's be nice to yourself. It's a lot easier to be nice to other people when it comes from a real place where you're also nice to yourself. And go enjoy something. Like, enjoy something. Like, don't just like do something in hopes of enjoying other people's attention for it. Like, just do something you enjoy.
That's nice. I love that.
Please.
I'll take the cheesy joy. That's cute. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who's listened. If you enjoyed it, please hit that follow, subscribe button, rate it 5 stars. If you didn't enjoy it, you don't have to rate it anything. It's okay. You can keep that to yourself. I'll see you next time.